Welcome to the Expert Edge. This is the show where we bring on experts in their fields of health and wellness, and we hear their stories and we learn what they see working in the field of diabetes reversal and prevention. So I'm really happy to introduce today's expert, Jennifer Pickett. Welcome. So glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I'm so glad we're getting to hop on and have this chat. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm so glad that you could make it. And I want all of you to meet Jennifer. She's a seasoned dietitian. She has a master's degree in human nutrition. She's also a functional medicine certified health coach and a certified midlife specialist with over 26 years of experience. So you might like to know that she's also a wife and a mother of two, and she's on a mission to empower women that are 40 and over through her transformative Hormone Huddle course and Healthy Harmony podcast. She believes in the power of education to make empowered decisions for your health, and she loves to use humor, common sense, and mindfulness to overcome overwhelm so that you can live your best life in midlife. So I am really excited to dive in here today and see how does all of this connect with diabetes prevention and reversal, because I know there's some very great connections that we don't always think about in the arenas that we're going to be talking about today. So let's start by, I'd love to hear from you. What was it that got you started in your interest in health and the connection with lifestyle? Because I know we're not born that way. So what happened along the way to bring you down this journey?
It goes back many, many years ago. I started studying nutrition in school. I thought it was health had always really interested me. I was fascinated by the medical field, and so decided to go into dietetics and nutrition and pursue a profession as a dietitian. And so did an internship, ended up taking my very first job in Jackson, Mississippi, working for an amazing hospital, really good multidisciplinary team. My focus at that time was a great deal of oncology. Of course, we covered everything. So a lot of diabetes management. And I saw then how overwhelming it was to give some diabetes education and have someone sit there and just have this wide-eyed look on their face like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get this done? So I saw that disconnect between this diet education, this lofty goal, this very complicated thing, and the real person and how they would implement that. And my concern over the years, as I shifted out of being a dietitian and then decided to pursue some additional education years later, my concern was this: how do we get to the root of the issue? How do we prevent? Instead of just focusing on disease management, can we go back a little bit further and actually prevent that disease? Is there a commonality between all of these diseases? And sure enough, what I learned through functional medicine is that there's definitely a commonality here. And that main driving factor, that main common root problem is inflammation. So what can we do about inflammation? What drives inflammation in the body? So I really loved that functional medicine training and shifting gears from that traditional sense of what's the diagnosis, what medication are we going to throw at it, versus functional medicine that says, wait a minute, why is this happening? Why is someone struggling with their weight, for instance? Why is someone struggling with anxiety? So functional medicine really asks that question, why? We're trying to get to the root issue. I also deeply appreciated the fact that functional medicine looks at the body as a system. Everything works together, which is God's design. That makes complete sense. Whether you have some medical education or not, it kind of makes sense that the body works together as a system. Meaning, when you start to make some positive, healthy habits, that's going to have a very positive effect on the entire body, on all the systems. And then I love the fact that functional medicine is lifestyle medicine, and that we want to look at every single aspect of our life, whether that it's not just nutrition, it's not just eat less, move more, which can kind of get shoved down our throats a little bit, but hey, what about sleep? What about stress? And what are some of those practical ways that we can really support the body so that we can prevent disease, but also live at this optimal level where we can enjoy life and not have anything holding us back?
I love that. And I think that vision that you have for helping people address some of the root causes, and inflammation is definitely a root cause of prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, as well as progression into diabetes. So today we're going to be really looking at what are some of the things we can do to dampen the fires of inflammation inside of our body. And so let's start with looking at maybe stress and sleep. How in the world do these interact with our body to create inflammation, and what can we do to decrease the impact?
Well, I think it's one of my absolute favorite subjects because I think as women, we're such great caregivers. And
Mm,
we're a little bit sacrificial in that. Like we will sacrifice in our mind, we're going to
mhm.
sacrifice our own health so that we can take good care of our family. And you see after a while how that doesn't really work out too well because
Yeah.
we get our body starts to shut down on us. So these are two key factors that we want to look at immediately. And we want to do that from a very grace-filled standpoint. I've had a lot of clients who are coming from coaches that are using a lot of guilt and shame. And so
Mm,
that is very, very devastating. I had a client last week say, I like your approach. You're very compassionate and not condemning. And I'm
mm,
saying that at the beginning because sometimes as we talk about these health things, as women, we start to feel very guilty. We're not going to get very far if we're kind of rooted in that guilt and shame. So instead, we can kind of look at this from the aspect of, okay, how can I shift my habits a little bit, take better care of myself so that I can live life to the fullest? And let me start with
mhm,
the basics. My body needs sleep. And it is amazing to me that sleep is a very, very active
mm,
process. There is a lot happening when we sleep. We've really taken it for granted. So it's like a deep cleanse, a huge detoxification. A lot of detox
mhm,
happens when we sleep, a huge restoration, healing that happens as we sleep. I like to describe it like this. And I think you'll like this. Imagine you've got a team of house cleaners that come into your house and they're going to get it spick and span and they cover everything. I mean, literally from the ceiling to the floor, they're getting the baseboards, they're getting the ceiling fan, they're scrubbing the grout in the shower, they're washing the windows. How do you feel when you walk in?
mm,
You feel incredible. You feel literally renewed. I mean, it's a huge load off. That is exactly what happens when you get good sleep.
mhm,
Good restorative sleep is a deep cleansing of the body and the brain, both of
mhm,
those. And so when we sacrifice sleep, we are literally, we're never going to be able to move forward on our health journey. Like we will always struggle with insulin resistance, for instance. We will always struggle with inflammation because so much happens when we sleep. So we don't want to miss out on that. So we really want to
mm.
start by just some practical tips, working with our circadian rhythms. I know a lot of your listeners have heard of this. It's your sleep, wake, and
Yeah.
eat cycle. And so it so happens that the circadian rhythms goes along with the rhythms of the earth, the light outside. So let's
Mhm,
work with that. And what that looks like in practical terms is getting outside first thing in the morning, getting that natural light to your eyes to help the body kind of naturally wake up. It kind of spikes that cortisol a little bit. And in the morning, that's a really good thing. And then it helps to wake the body up. It also helps to ensure a good night's sleep, which is kind of crazy, right? And then at night, we do the opposite. When that sun goes down, that is a very clear signal. Let's have low lights in the house, lamp light only. Let's try to stay off the blue light from the screens for at least 1 to 2 hours before we go to bed. And
mm,
that's a real tough one to do. But the rationale is this, that blue light is stimulating cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol is pumped from the adrenal glands and to put you on alert mode because cortisol is
mhm,
saying, hey, there's danger. You need to watch out. So your body is not going to unwind and get ready for good sleep. Your body is getting the signal to be awake and be alert. That
yeah.
scrolling on the phone, we've all made that mistake. It's not worth it. it's not worth it. So we really want to work with our light, getting that light first thing in the morning, even if all you can do is stand there, get natural light to your eyes without your sunglasses. If you can take a short walk, even better. But again, just a little bit of natural light to your eyes, so beneficial. Turning down your lights at night and having a relaxing bedtime routine.
I love all those tips, Jennifer,
Don't you
because
love
those are
that?
really practical. Absolutely. And none of those cost anything. It just takes
Right.
some intentionality, right?
It does.
And it's been interesting. Just recently, I've been reading a book called Why We Sleep. I don't know if you've seen that book or not.
Yes, yes.
And I love the stuff that Matthew Walker brings out in that book about the different cycles that we go through in sleep and how important it is for us to have all those different phases as they were designed to roll out in a full night's sleep. And that we're just really shortcutting our health when we shortcut our sleep in so many ways. So I really, really appreciate all of those practical tips. And you mentioned that having these high levels of cortisol increase inflammation and insulin resistance. Do you want to say anything more about that connection?
Yeah, cortisol, cortisol is very important. So we want to look at something that most people are not really familiar with, and that is our adrenal gland. So we have this axis called the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. This is a feedback loop. So this is like our stress management system, if you will. And so when the body is interpreting a threat, either a very real threat or a perceived threat, those adrenal glands are pumping out cortisol. So that is a response of this is where we interplay the nervous system. It's an aspect of the sympathetic nervous system called fight or flight mode. And most of us have heard of fight or flight mode. Fight or flight mode is wonderful, but it's just for emergency purposes only. Like your body will do things in fight or flight mode to get you out of danger that you would not believe. The problem nowadays is that we're living in fight or flight mode. We're living in that mode. Our body cannot cope in that mode. So when those cortisol levels are high, body's in fight or flight mode, everything shifts. So number one, blood sugar is dysregulated because the muscles are like, oh, there's a threat. She's going to have to run from that danger or turn around and fight that danger. So the muscles are like, we're going to need that blood sugar. She needs more blood sugar. So blood sugar is going to be dysregulated. A body in stress also will not digest. A body in stress will not digest. So we have to remember that. We could be, doing all the protocols, taking all the supplements, fixing all the healthy meals. But if we're stressed, we're not even going to digest our food because all the blood flow is diverted to the extremities. So we can literally run fast or fight hard. But the body is just trying to get away from that danger or fight the danger. So we have to look at that. Research shows the blood even gets ready to clot, which is interesting, just in case you're cut when you are running fast or fighting hard. So all of these things happen in the body during fight or flight mode. And that's why we're having some of these health issues because we're living in fight or flight mode. And as women, we've been so busy, men and women, but a vast majority of women, we're really good caregivers. We've been so busy taking care of everybody else. Fight or flight mode is our norm. We don't even recognize it anymore. And our health is suffering as a result. And so that's why we have to make the shift from sympathetic fight or flight mode to parasympathetic rest and digest.
I love that. And bring in that connection with digestion, because we've all heard how important digestion is for health and including mental health and metabolic health. So anything that disrupts this is really affecting a lot of different things in our bodies. So I think I love, how important it is that we pay attention to what's going on with our nervous system. It seems to me that not only are we living in fight or flight mode all the time, which we weren't designed to do, but sometimes we're not even sure how to get out of that. So if someone stops and realizes, I am always like kind of pushing, always have something going, too busy to really slow down, what are some of the things that we can do that will upregulate our parasympathetic, that's the relaxation, the digestion part of
Mhm.
our nervous system, and kind of calm down the sympathetic nervous system?
It's such a great question because the answer is some kind of funky things and they're all free things. And that's what I like the funky free things, and it's probably why you haven't heard as much about it. When someone can't assign a really big price tag to something when it comes to your health, it's not discussed as much. So let's take
Right.
advantage of all the free things. And so this
Hmm.
is one of those, several examples as we're trying to shift from fight or flight to rest and digest. We want to stimulate the vagal nerve. The vagus nerve runs
Hmm.
from your brain to your gut. Very, very important. And there's some ways to stimulate that so that we can shift out of fight or flight. So one of those would be deep breathing. One of the
Mm.
most effective ways is deep breathing. And most of us know it's beneficial. Are most of us practicing it on a regular basis? Probably not, because again, we tend to kind of underestimate some things that are very simple. We're like, they can't make that big of a deal, but it really can. So I always tell my clients, any sort of deep breathing, because when you're on the verge of a panic attack and an anxiety attack, you can't remember any kind of complicated deep breathing technique. But any sort of deep breathing is going to be beneficial. Send that signal to the body. So even a short inhale in through the nose, a longer exhale out through the mouth, kind of blowing the belly up like a balloon,
Hmm.
is very effective. I really love four square breathing or box breathing, as it's
Hmm.
known as, where you're going to breathe in through your nose, count to four, hold it, count to four, breathe out through your mouth, count to four, and hold it, count to four. So I'm doing the little
Hmm.
box because that's how I want you to think about it in your head and literally count, because when your brain is processing that counting, that can also be very beneficial combined with the breathing. So intentional deep breathing is going to help the body
Hmm.
dial back that response. Cold therapy is another way to really dial back the response of the sympathetic nervous system. What that looks like, let's say you've had a rough morning and you're busy, you're stressed out, you're getting ready for work, you're taking a shower, turning that shower to cold at the very end, 1 to 3 minutes. That's going to kind of bring about that parasympathetic response. You've seen people doing the cold plunge. You don't have to be that extreme if you want to, and that's good for your body. Great. If not, if all you can do is turn your shower to cold, you've seen people maybe have a bowl of ice water and put their face in a little bit of ice water, and that's kind of helping as well. I had a client who is a trauma counselor, and as she's working on her health journey, she kind of realized everything she's hearing was really impacting her. She would keep a cold pack in her freezer. And sometimes in between clients, she would take that cold pack, put it on her chest, and then do some deep breathing. So then you're combining two factors to support the
Hmm.
nervous system. And that's so simple. So you can place that cold pack right here on your chest, or you can place it right on the back of your neck. And again, you're sending that signal to the body, hey, you're safe. It's going to be okay. We want the body to feel safe because the body is responding to a threat, either a real threat or a perceived threat. One of my other favorite ones is, and kind of very funky, but humming, singing, gargling. I mean, weird, right? But again, very practically speaking, you've
Hmm.
had a day full of meetings. You've got 5 minutes in between meetings. You can feel your body in that stress mode. Your chest is tight. You're clenching your jaw. You're tensing your shoulders. Putting on a favorite song for 2 minutes, humming along, singing
Hmm.
along, can make a big impact. And then lastly, birds. Apparently, by instinct, when we hear birds chirping, our body interprets that as safety, because apparently when birds are chirping, that means there's no predators around. So even us just giving ourselves a slight break, stepping outside, listening to the birds, watching the birds, and that kind of has a calming effect on the nervous system. And I love all of these because they're all kind of funky and they're all free and very easy to implement. And I know you've noticed this with your practice. The things that are real complicated, we're going to burn out real quick. We're already in a state of overwhelm. But if we can identify some really simple, what I call micro habits that we can implement on a daily basis, that's what's going to be the most supportive. That's a little bit more realistic for us than some of these big, lofty, complicated health plans.
I love all of these different ideas that you've shared. And I kind of want to go back to that ending your shower with cold thing. I want you to know that there's probably no age at which it's too young to start that. My mother, I was born in a blue zone in Southern California, Loma Linda, and my mother took her nursing there. And in her nursing program, they taught them how to use hot and cold water therapy. And so from the time I was very young, like even before I was a toddler, my mother always finished our baths with a cold pour. So like I can remember being like 2 years old at the end of a bath, standing up in the bathtub and just begging my mom to pour the cold water over me because I felt so good when it was done. And so you can start really young with your children, getting them used to that cold ending. And maybe she didn't do it for even a full minute. But what we know is that not only does it stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, help you relax and your digestion, but it also boosts your immune system. And because my mother did that routinely for us, it was super, super unusual for either me or my sibling to ever get colds or respiratory infections. In fact, we couldn't even catch the chicken pox when all the kids in the neighborhood had it and they sent us out to play with them so we could get it.
Yeah.
Never got that either.
And you guys didn't get it.
No, I ended up getting it as an adult, but never got it as a child. And so, these really simple things are very powerful. And it doesn't take a lot. And like you can start with 15 or 30 seconds of cold if you're not ready to do a full minute and like work up to it. But I want to share that I once, as part of a challenge, I did a full month of 5-minute cold showers every day.
Wow.
And the box breathing that you described made the cold shower much more relaxing, like less stressful, because I found that when I wasn't doing box breathing, I would get really tense as I was sitting there in the shower, like shivering, right? And it didn't feel the same. And I started doing the box breathing and I could actually like relax and enjoy the cold water. It just like completely shifted how I perceived the cold shower. And so that box breathing is really powerful. It's useful in dealing with chronic pain. It's useful in a lot of different contexts, but I love how you brought that up as a way to calm our nervous system and like really, when we say stimulate the parasympathetic, the effect is that we calm down, right? So stimulation sounds like you're making it active, but if it's the parasympathetic nervous system, it's calming us down. So those are just great tips. And I also loved the one about going out and listening to the birds. My husband and I just moved back from Northern California to Northern Michigan, and we are on 40 acres of woods. And so just a couple days ago, we were out in the woods and my husband has downloaded this amazing app called Merlin bird identification app. And you can just like hold your phone up and it will listen for bird sounds. And then you look at your phone, they'll tell you what kind of birds you're hearing. So even when you can't see the birds, it's like so much fun. Like we found that on our little walk that we took, there was like 35 different species of birds. It was just amazing.
Oh, wow. Okay, I've got to check that app out. We have gotten, my husband and I, very similar. We feel like old people, and I'm so happy. But we've got into bird watching. And so there's this store called Wild Birds Unlimited. And like I love to go because all they have is bird seed. And so you can like even like specific things for specific types of birds you're trying to attract. But we have our little setups all around our house and outside in the yard and trying to attract those birds, and we get all excited. Look at that woodpecker, so it's just a lot of fun. It's just very calming and soothing, and something shifts in the body when we just take a moment and look at the birds. I in the Bible it says several times, look at the birds. And I really feel like God means that both figuratively and literally. Like, look at the birds. Like he's reminding us how much more he'll take care of us But something shifts in the body when you just take a moment and look at that bird and you look at the colors and you're just kind of immersed in that experience, because we live in such a stress-filled, anxious world, and we're not meant to live like this, and we're having health issues as a result. So I'm gonna have to check out that app. I love that. And I love how your mom kind of led out with those healthy habits with you at such a young age. And look at that impact that had on you and your life and what you're doing. And that impact literally lasts for generations. It's why I love working with women, and I love working with mamas. We're trying to bring about generational change. It's not just about that mama, it's about her. It starts with her, it's her whole family. But those changes, those health patterns can literally, we're starting to change generations that are coming after. So what we're doing is important, and those little things make a big difference. So good for your sweet mama for leading out years ago with that.
Yes, that's so true. And I think it was yesterday, actually, I was reading in a devotional and was talking about how Jesus set us the example for mindfulness. And he was talking about how every day he took time by himself. So there's a little solitude there, sometimes hard for us as moms, but a little solitude. It said time in nature and just listening with our heart for God's voice to speak to us. And that as we quiet our minds and our bodies and meditate on his word, that we can hear him lead and guide us. And, if we did this as a daily practice, imagine what that would do for our nervous system, right? It would really, be super supportive for our best health. So I really appreciate you bringing those things up. Now, there's a little free gift that you also have for all of our listeners here today, and it's going to be in a link right under this video that you're watching. So when someone clicks on that link, what are they going to get, and how will that help them?
So what they're going to get is a system dysfunction hormone disruption checklist. So in midlife, so now I'm a certified midlife specialist, not to be confused with midwife. It's the opposite end of the extreme. It's as we're going through perimenopause and menopause, and I saw the need for training. You mentioned that I have a podcast. And so last year, at the beginning of 2023, I was interviewing this podcast guest. She's a menopause expert, and asked her about hormone replacement therapy. And based on her answer, I thought, I know very little. I kind of have some preconceived notions, but I need to know a lot more. And so that led me to doing some very extensive training and ultimately being certified as a midlife specialist for women, and putting that together with my functional medicine training and experience. I've spent the last 3 years working for a functional medicine doctor, having my own private practice as well. And what I've seen with women, we are having all of these symptoms. And so often we're like, it's my hormones. It's just my hormones. That's it. Well, it could be your hormones, but all of these other systems are at play. So if I could just briefly describe this, because I think your audience will find it very helpful.
Sure.
When I talk about hormones, specifically the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, if you'll picture a pyramid or a triangle, and you've got hormones at the very, very top, and we're like, fix my hormones, Jennifer, just fix my hormones. I get that a lot. And instead, you can't go straight to the top and be very successful. We're not going to have any kind of long-term effect. Instead, if we look at the foundation of that pyramid, how can we fix the foundation? How can we support all the body systems that play into our hormones? And then we're a really good host if we do choose to do some hormone replacement therapy in the right manner. It's a very big topic. So at the base of that would be good gut health and detoxification. And then you move into good adrenal function, supporting the adrenal glands. We talked about nervous system support today. Then you move into metabolism, blood sugar support. Then you talk hormone, you talk thyroid. Then you have hormones at the very top. So that's kind of how I have things laid out in my hormone program, but also in this hormone checklist, so that you can see different symptoms that may be related to poor gut health You're not
Mm.
detoxifying properly. It could be related
Yeah.
to adrenal function. So this helps you identify what other systems in my body are off. Is it just
Mm.
hormones? Probably not. It's probably related to some other system dysfunction as well. So very, very helpful checklist that your listeners can get for free with that download.
I love that. So thank you so much for giving us a little overview of your approach to dealing with that. And this checklist can help us to identify if maybe there's something we should follow up on, look into a
Definitely.
little bit deeper and do that. So I just want to say thank you so much, Jennifer, for being with us here today. I think we have some really practical takeaways that we can go and apply as soon as we walk away from this video. And we can experience better health, calmer nervous systems, and less inflammation, which will help us to prevent and reverse diabetes and metabolic disorders that are related to that. So remember, health is wealth, and it comes by choice, not by chance. Thank you for being with us here today.